So hi everyone, and welcome to this ThreeFold demo session. Today it's a very nice session, I think, since Scott will present you the Peppermint minting tool. So I'll let Scott present you this amazing new feature for the grid and especially for farmers.
All right, thanks, Meek. Yeah, I'm very excited, and thanks everyone for being here today, both live and we'll be watching the recording. Meek said today I'm going to be talking about something that I built. It's called Peppermint, and it is a tool for viewing both minting receipt information, so this is information about how much nodes are getting paid and their uptime, and it also has a nice feature of giving a higher level of detail than anything you've been able to get with the available tools so far. So I'll be giving a short presentation on the features. I'll give you a quick demo and tour of it. Then I'll show you a bit about how it's made. Don't want to go too deep into that, but I do think it's interesting and fun to check out how you can build something like this. So here's a quick screenshot. This is the interface. You enter the node or the farm that you're interested in. You'll see a list of historic receipts, and there's a bit more to it. We'll see in the demo features. So grabs all the minting receipts, presents data in a way, nice user-friendly interface you can click around in. You don't have to deal with any JSON or anything like that. It's got some sorting and filtering options. We get the details view, which I'll show you. You can download a CSV of all your uptime events. And the most important feature, of course, it has light mode and
Very
dark mode.
important.
Yes. Now, so we'll get into demo. Flip over here. And so here's what it looks like. And we've got two tabs open here. One is my local development box, and this one is the URL where you can use this tool for yourself now. I haven't made an announcement or release just because I want to make sure it was somewhat stable, but we'll go ahead and pop the top off that one.
Is it hosted on AWS or?
Oh, of course, yes. So this is running on only the finest AWS servers. No, this is hosted on the grid.
Oh yeah, nice.
Testnet currently on some free farm nodes, so that's why we have, and it's on testnet gateway. I'll talk a bit more about how it's deployed and kind of how I manage the deployment later, because I think that's a sort of nice workflow based on the grid that's actually rather convenient. Yeah, so when you come in here, we already have the farm one pulled up, but I'll show you from the top. So when you come in, you can just enter a node ID. Let's start with that. And by default, it will load minting receipts. Here's current year, going backward in time as you scroll down, and all the way back to the start of grid 3, I guess. Or to the start of when minting receipts are available. And that's one thing I'll note is that we don't, I think, have complete coverage in the receipt system. And when you click on one of these rows, I will take you into the detail view. So this will show you how many resource units the node was rewarded for, the certification type for this period. That's something that can change as the node goes through time. That could be different for different periods. And period start and end dates. Down below, we have the details view. This is not the most ergonomic thing yet, especially for nodes that are awake all the time, because you're going to see every uptime report the node is generated every 40 minutes for the entire minting period. But it does provide you with a nice and at least somewhat accessible view to be able to understand what went wrong if a node has had some issues. So like this node, we can see that was 100% uptime period. We could look at another period. This one also has a fix-up. So here you'll see both the corrected receipt and the original receipt. Depending on the fix-up, sometimes different data will be available in fix-ups and the corrected receipts, but this should give you a sense, at least for if there was a difference in the amount of TFT for the fix-up, and you would see that as a fix-up payment. So we don't have all the details in here about the payments and when they happen, but at least for fix-up periods, you should be able to get a sense for what changed with the fix-up, if anything. And here now we can scroll this one and try to find, because this one had less than 100% uptime. We'll see, so this is the downtime column, and sometimes downtime can be negative, which is confusing, but basically the deal here is that we compare 40 minutes of time, which is 2,406 seconds, to how much uptime the node reported. Sometimes it can vary by a second or two in either direction, just due to differences between how the node clock is running and how the clock in the TF chain nodes is running. But there's a limit to how much skew can be there. So nodes cannot accumulate more uptime than time is actually passed according to TF chain, except for a skew factor of maybe 6 to 10 seconds or something like that. And of course, it's impossible for the node to gain more uptime than the length of the period. So just a few notes as you're looking through this and trying to understand, but this is where it gets interesting here. So we can see that this will now show us exactly when this node had some trouble, shall we say. So these more time has passed than the amount of uptime that's reported, and so there's a gap here, and there's some downtime, approximately 40 minutes happening in a few events. So this gives you and we can see both the Unix timestamp, and I think this is UTC. It's one thing actually I wanted to work on, is make sure these are always printed as UTC instead of as the current time according to the node's time zone, where this is running. So, or maybe even localized. So if anyone out there is a Python developer and you want to help implement some features, please drop by hands. Give me a hand, that would be great. So this is cool anyway. We've in the past never had a view like this where you could just come and see like, oh, this is exactly when my node missed some uptime reports when it went down and things like that. There's a few more. Yeah, so that's cool. Let's flip this over instead of looking at node 1 to look at farm 1, which is a free farm in Belgium. When you search by farm, you can filter, you can sort it either by the node ID. So this again will show us the same kind of view we had before, but for every node in the farm. Or we can sort them by periods. So in this case, you will see.
And that is useful when you're at the end of the month and you want to see if you minted everything. You just go there, check your period.
Yeah,
Nice.
so if this was my farm, I could look in here and quickly get an overview of all my nodes, how much uptime they had, whether or not they minted, and how much they minted. I want to pop into the details on one of these nodes now. Find one that is managed by the farmer bot. Did I just click the same node? Or I guess 22. Maybe that node was managed in the past. Who's got a farmer bot node ID that I can check? I know my own farm has a farmer bot. Let's go there. All right, this node is managed by the farmer bot. And so this gives us a nice view as well for farmer bot managed nodes. It's this node was up and then started going to sleep. So in this case, you'll be able to see the credit that the node is getting for its standby time, as well as the credit that it's getting for the time that it's awake during wake up periods. So this is very nice. If you have a farmbot node, if it fails to wake up within 24 hours and it's missing some uptime for that reason, there will be a note here about this. So again, for farmbot nodes, this gives you a nice and detailed view about what's going on with the node. You can click here to download the same thing as a CSV. And that's pretty cool. We don't have all of the info in here in terms of like there's any violations according to FarmerBot. There's definitely some additional data that would come out of the minting process that isn't present here yet, but it's overall a nice amount of detail and certainly better than anything we've had before. And if you want, you can go light mode. I go the dark side myself. And with that, let's flip over and I'll show you the.
Can you show maybe the CSV feature, or can we, if you download it, you have a basic spreadsheet?
Yeah, I mean, this is boring, but well, it's not boring for everyone. Yeah, so if I download this to my computer and we can open it here in LibreOffice. Just copy what I was doing here. Okay, here we go. So I can import this. So it's, yeah, just the same exact view, just in your spreadsheet.
Okay,
Spreadsheet
so you can store them
application.
and have them later on, maybe for farmers for their tax, or I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. You can use this. Might be nice if you wanted to do some analysis of some kind. Yeah, for tax purposes or anything else, which it's actually interesting. The first version sort of this application, you might say, was actually a Google Docs script that generated the whole thing in a spreadsheet. And if there's any interest in having more spreadsheet-like features, or maybe some bulk CSVs or things like that, certainly something we could consider and potentially implement. So yeah, if you have any, I guess that's a nice segue. If you have any feature requests, the place to go here is GitHub. Now this is on my personal GitHub account. I should probably move this over to one of our ThreeFold organizations. But yeah, you can just come in here to issues, and all the issues are closed because all the bugs are fixed and all the features are implemented.
That's good. That's good.
No, that's. I should open some issues for some things that I want to work on. But here's the code is here. If you want to poke around, there's quick start. You can run this yourself. If you deploy a VM on the grid, you can basically copy and paste everything from here and run this. If you want to go to production, then you can look down here. And I think it's pretty simple to get started with this code. There's a few files in here. So this receipts piece is a bit of an abstraction that goes around the receipts API. So if anyone knows about alpha minting, this is our sort of original receipts visualizer that dev team built, but it has a limitation, which is that you need to know your receipt hash, and that you can find from your minting payments on Stellar. There's also an API that is also used for the minting receipt features in the dashboard. This API gives you this JSON view, and browser thinks it's in Corsican language, whatever that is. So again, this isn't the most pleasing thing to look at, but that's just to show you that that's where the API is. And so there is a abstraction here around the Receipts API that does some caching and things like this. This code was written by AI almost entirely, which is kind of cool. So use at your own risk. Use the code written by me at your own risk, probably greater risk. But if you wanted to do any kinds of scripts or anything around minting receipts, this gives you a nice interface where you can just come in here and you can actually fetch all the receipts for a given node, and then it has a data structure that represents a period and things like that. The application itself is about 500 lines of Python here, which ain't bad. It actually contains all the HTML as well. So I won't get too much into the weeds here because I don't know if we have any Python devs or aspiring Python devs with us today or anyone who watched the recording, but the code is here and I will just show you a bit about how it's built. So this is done with Fast HTML, which is a relatively new framework for building websites and applications in Python. So as I showed you, the whole site is in a single Python file. There's no separate HTML templates. There is a bit of JavaScript that helps with the theme switching, but overall it is almost entirely Python. Fast HTML is very cool. I enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's a great way to get started with web development. And here's the doc, so you can come in here and check it out. It's using, by default, it's giving you Pico CSS themes, which are very nice. So that's responsible for all the styling that you see on the page, the nice buttons and stuff like this. So we can't take too much credit for that. And it's also integrating with HTMX by default, which is a framework for building independent or interactive applications that is based in a hypermedia paradigm where you don't need too much JavaScript. And this site is not terribly interactive, but that's what allows you to say, click on like these table rows and load new content that way. So
So the front end and the back end, it's all in just one code, one Python file.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing is there in one file, which I clicked. So meaning to click here, but I can show you this as well. So this is how I've been working on this project. So here on the left, I have NeoVim, and here again is the code. And on the right, I have my terminal, and I've been enjoying this workflow quite a lot. And I'll just show you, I have, for deploying to the grid, I have a couple of scripts here that are very simple. So one is called deploy.shell. And what this does is it just pulls in the changes on the remote VM from Git. So it just does like a git fetch and a git reset or a git pull, and then does a zinit restart. So this is just a nice way to show like how simple the development can be. When I'm making changes here, I can just do a git push, and then I run like this deploy.shell. And after that, the changes are live. So that's not necessarily specific to working on the grid, but just to show you like how with some very simple scripts, you can get some nice workflows going. And then this is something I've also enjoyed just having around for convenience. I also have an SSH script, which just wraps SSH with the IP of the VM I've deployed on. So if I want to connect, I can just write ssh.shell.
And this is using the static website on the dashboard?
No, this is just a micro VM that I've deployed. So again, using basically the instructions that are here in the repo. Yeah, you just deploy a micro VM and run these lines, and this is how you run the development server. But the rest of this is all you need to get start from a micro VM and get up and running. So just want to show this because it's kind of fun, and you can also just pass commands directly to this script. So I can just like run, I can run ZNet, and I can quickly see like,
and it sends you the output.
Yeah, the output comes right here into the shell. So for development, I find this workflow to be really nice, and then I can just run Python main.py, and that will give me my local dev server, and I have that in a tab over here. So, and my workflow here is like, if I'm making some changes, first I just save them and they get automatically reloaded here. And then I just do a git push and deploy that shell, and then those changes are live on the grid. And as I mentioned earlier, this is just using a gateway. So this can be as simple as just coming into the dashboard and clicking the gateway button and attaching a gateway with a free subdomain off of the gateway domain that's provided. And this is very fast, so you can get something like this up and running in really just a matter of minutes. And that I like a lot in terms of where we're at. And you can do it all from the dashboard now, which is pretty cool too.
That's nice.
Yeah, if you're curious about this way of working, they have some examples here for fast HTML, which actually I used, I think, something out of this repo as my starting point. But this was cool for me because I'd never built anything like this before, and actually seeing the way that some of these examples, like a very simple Python file like this, can do a lot.
So it's really fetching the API and then having some UI in the front end to interact.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Remind me where I was going next. So this is actually, overall, it's a culmination of some work I've been doing on different tools for a while. And again, if you're Python dev or someone that can talk to AI and ask it to do some things for you, which is how things are going these days, you can start to do a lot relatively quickly, thanks to some groundwork that I've been developing, and thanks, of course, also to all the open source and things that our developers are working on as well. So I want to show this one off. So this is Grid.py. It's a library that I maintain that has a number of modules for doing stuff with the grid. And so I use this within Peppermint to I can just show it to you quickly. So you can import the Grid network. This is our mainnet work.
So from any Python, you can do import Grid3, right?
Yeah, so this is published in the Python package repository, so you can just do like a pip install, and that's covered here. You can just write that pip install Grid3, and once you start up, so once you create a grid network, this is an abstraction over some of the modules that are in here. So now we can do things like we have a wrapper around GraphQL, so we do this thing for nodes, where it's like I want to find the node ID of all nodes for farm ID is equal to 1. I can run this, and it will give me back all the node IDs for all the nodes that are within farm1. So I use this a lot, actually, just in trying to answer the questions that we have in the course of like interacting with farmers and operating the ThreeFold network. This is pretty fun, and it's what I use to also pull in like the grid stats that I publish weekly, 2-weekly, monthly basis. So if you're curious about stuff like this, this is in here as well.
This fetches GraphQL?
Yep, this fetches from GraphQL and it shows the number of nodes that are online, the number of the total resources reserved and all the contracts and things like that. So if you're curious about any data about how things are working on the grid, this can be a nice way to get in there and do that. And it makes it very convenient if you're writing anything in Python that needs to plug in. You can, so there's the GraphQL, you can also interact directly with TF chain. That's not quite as smooth, but that's going to be in here as well. We should have a TF chain. We don't. Oh yeah, it's not in the automatic grid network. So I won't show that off today. This isn't a demo about Grid.py, but just to say that there's some tools in there if you want to.
Yeah, it gives an overview of how you did that. It's cool.
Yeah, if you want to develop some things in Python or try to ask the AI to do some things in Python, you could probably feed this to it and it would come up with some code that might make your computer go up in smoke, or it might do something cool. You never know. And the other piece here, so this is also an extension in a way of the work that I originally did for the node status bot. So part of the data that you're seeing in the details view here, when you drill into one of these nodes, this is data that's not available anywhere except for TF chain normally. So for the purposes of the node status bot to be able to give details on the farmer bot and when there are violations happening, I wrote this ingester program, which is also using, so this is using the TF chain module from Grid 3. And what it does is it pulls all the data related to uptime events and farmer bot happenings, all the data from TF chain into a SQLite database that then you can use for fun and profit. So the node status bot is using this to deliver violation alerts to farmers, but we can also use that same data to run essentially like mock minting calculations. And so that's what we have also in here is like a port of the minting code essentially. So that's there. And overall, this just gives some nice tools. Like that's how we're able to essentially visualize the minting, what minting did for any node in the past using this data that's been sort of sucked in from TF chain. And that's available. I'm not sure how far back in the past it goes. Don't have the data available for the full history of TF chain, but if anyone's interested to see what was happening further in the past, then that's certainly a possibility. And there's some other fun possibilities here, like if I ever get to it, I think it would be neat to build a tool that also pulls in all the TF chain events for like contracts and deployments. So you'd be able to see like a more detailed view, maybe graphs of like how the grid has been utilized over time. But yeah,
that would be cool.
There's only one of me, and well, AI is getting pretty good, so we'll see what happens there. But for now, I can't build all the projects in my mind.
But we have Peppermint now, so that's good.
Yeah, so that's just to give you a bit of the background also on what makes this possible. Probably this ingester thing, now that it's more generalized, I'll move it over to Grid 3 at some point. But yeah, I'd be thrilled if anyone wants to play with this code and find something that's broken in it or build something cool with it. Please let me know. If you have ideas or issues, you can open them up on the respective repos. I am working on some features. The big one that I want to implement is to be able to show the ongoing minting period here. So currently we can only see data for minting periods that have been completed, but I've realized that it would be very nice if we could also get this detail view on the ongoing minting period so the farmers can understand how much uptime their node has already accrued and whether or not it's still potentially eligible for minting in terms of how much downtime it's suffered. And
it's good when you're using the farmer bot too, so you can see the alert, I guess.
yeah, that would be nice as well. So I'd like to bring in also the violation counting code. So yeah, if you're running FarmBot, you could come in and see like, does your node hit the uptime? Does it have more than one violation? And can it be eligible for minting? So those are the sorts of things that I'm thinking about working on next. But yeah, for now, I'm really happy with the current feature set, and I hope that folks find it useful. I know our support team has already been playing around with this,
and we see a
Nick has
lot of
been
100%. So there's a lot of perfect uptime, let's say. Have you checked this by fetching different farms and nodes? I guess it
yeah.
gives us a sense of the uptime on the grid.
Yeah, this is farm one, so this is kind of best case scenario, you could say, being our free farm in Belgium. But it's a good point, actually, and something that is kind of hard to see from an outside perspective. But if you were to grab this information for all the nodes on the grid, you'd see that actually the majority have rather high uptime. So in general, that's also the case.
Any questions? Feature requests? Not bugs, I hope.
I have a question, Scott, for a test. Can you check farm 2995?
Sure. Oh, there's one.
If you scroll down, it looks like it loses a node every month, but it's still all up.
So
if you go June, July, and then suddenly August is one less, and September is 2 or 3 less.
yeah, so by default, I'm glad you asked this because by default, any empty periods don't show up. So
you can just enable it.
Yeah, a node that I think empty is defined as not minting or as zero uptime. I'm not sure. It's one or the other. Yeah, if you check this box, then you will see so-called empty periods. And this
Does
might
it
be
make
something
sense like this, Robert, when you check with the new feature, let's say?
There's still, I guess it does.
All right.
I think maybe this could be adjusted so that, yeah, it looks like it's showing now for only if there's zero minting, but it would be nice to show, maybe to also show if there's some uptime but no minting to show those without those box checked.
I believe node 4056 is actually carrying the farmer bot. Can you put up that screen again where it shows how it brings the other one to sleep?
Yeah, so if this one's running the farmer bot, then it would actually be on, this node's always up, it seems. We'd want to check a node that is managed by the farmer bot. So
6192, 6656.
oh yeah, okay. Let's look at these. So here we can see, this is a perfect 100% uptime period. So
good
we'll
job.
Looks nice here. We'll see. And generally, these.
I mean, some of the downtime you see was just something crashing or so. I mean, they're a few kilometers away, so I usually don't touch them. So something out of my control happens when it goes to zero.
Well, this is 100%, so I guess it's the other, right? The other nodes.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's a good one to clarify. If you want to see the details on FarmerBot action, then you'll want to click into the detail view for the node that is managed by FarmerBot. For the node that's running the FarmerBot, since it's always up, what you would see is the normal uptime reports happening every 40 minutes. So it's very
That's the one you want
so
100% for sure.
this one's very close as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm thinking of some way to like collapse these so it's easier to see if there's any issues and where they are, but yeah,
Yeah, if there are nodes, you show it, otherwise you don't display.
Yeah, I'll have to stretch my abilities a bit with the HTML and stuff. So.
But long story short, this would be a good, I was thinking this would be good to put on our website because obviously many of our customers come back with this question about uptimes and tokens.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, we can just put it in a newsletter and go,
yeah, you,
check it here.
Yeah, you add it as a subdomain and you host it on the grid on your own node.
Yeah,
That's good.
Okay.
Then we have redundancy with Peppermint. That's good.
Yeah, the full deployment is actually a bit more complicated than what you see in the README file. You won't get the details view if you deploy it that way. So that's an optional feature. I haven't written that part up yet. Yeah, this link. So I'll be writing up a forum post to kind of announce to launch this soon, and this link will be one. It's not really a great link, is it? Testnet. Maybe I need to think about this, giving it somewhat of a nicer link that at least doesn't say test. Think about that. Maybe I'll put it on the mainnet.
Yep. That's a good idea. Gen 01, that's quick to write.
Yeah, that part I don't mind. But I'm going to be releasing URL. Nice, it doesn't say test. So yeah, I'll be doing some sort of launch and write up something on the forum. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that. And once that's ready, you can certainly feel free to share this with your customers, and we'll see how the server handles some load.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Scott. That's nice. I learned a lot of stuff.
Absolutely, my
now
pleasure.
I want to use fast HTML. That looks fun.
Yeah, I had a great time writing this one. I mean, if you have some Python experience, or if you are adventurous and want to ask the AI to do something for you, then you can start building rather quickly with this. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Looks good.
All right, I guess that's everything. Well, thanks everybody. Nelson, the architect here as well.
And you,
Robert.
Thanks, Scott, Mick.
Cameron, Sherwin, thanks everyone for joining. And
thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mick.
We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
See you next time, guys.
Bye-bye.